When it comes to modern utilities, the Amish approach might seem like stepping into a time machine, but they're not completely anti-technology. Instead, they carefully evaluate each innovation based on whether it strengthens or weakens their community bonds. Gas-powered equipment? Sometimes yes, if it serves the community. Electricity from the grid? Generally no, as it creates too much dependence on the outside world. At the heart of their self-sufficient lifestyle sits an unlikely hero, the humble chicken. These feathered friends aren't just any backyard birds, they're the cornerstone of Amish sustainability. A typical Amish farm keeps anywhere from 30 to 50 chickens, providing eggs for both family consumption and local trade. Fun fact, an Amish family with 40 chickens can collect around 30 eggs daily during peak laying season. That's nearly 11,000 eggs a year. The chicken coop represents more than just a shelter for these valuable birds. It's a testament to Amish ingenuity and their deep understanding of working with nature rather than against it. Without modern heating systems or electric lights, they've developed clever methods to keep their chickens healthy and productive throughout the year. These methods have been refined over generations, passed down from parent to child, proving that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Speaking of keeping chickens warm, you might be surprised to learn just how sensitive these birds can be to cold temperatures. Even with their fluffy feathers, chickens need some help staying cozy when winter rolls around. But how do the Amish manage this without reaching for a thermostat? Well, that's where things get really interesting. "My chickens are tougher than that," said every first-time chicken keeper who lost eggs to the winter freeze. Let's talk about why keeping your chickens warm isn't just about being nice. It's about survival and, yes, those precious breakfast eggs. Here's a surprising fact. Chickens originally came from the jungles of Southeast Asia. That's right. Those hardy-looking birds strutting around your backyard are actually tropical creatures at heart. It's like expecting someone who grew up in Hawaii to be perfectly comfortable in Alaska without a proper coat. While chickens have adapted over thousands of years, they still haven't completely shed their tropical roots. When temperatures drop below freezing, chickens face some serious challenges. Their egg production doesn't just dip, it can come to a complete standstill. And we're not talking about a small decrease here. Studies show that when temperatures drop below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, egg production can plummet by up to 40%. That's nearly half your breakfast eggs gone missing. Even more interesting is that the quality of the eggs that do get laid often suffers too. The shells become thinner and more prone to cracking, which is about as useful as a chocolate teapot. But egg production isn't the only concern. Cold chickens are stressed chickens, and stressed chickens are more likely to get sick. Their immune systems weaken, making them vulnerable to various diseases. It's similar to how humans are more likely to catch a cold when we're run down, except chickens can't make themselves chicken soup. There's probably a joke about cannibalism in there somewhere. The cold affects different chicken breeds differently, kind of like how some people wear shorts in winter while others bundle up in parkas at the first hint of autumn. Breeds with large combs and wattles, those fleshy bits on their heads, are particularly vulnerable to frostbite. Yes, chicken frostbite is a real thing, and it's about as pleasant as it sounds. Those decorative headpieces aren't just for show, they're important body parts that help regulate body temperature. When they get frostbitten, it's not just painful, it can cause lasting damage. Here's something that might surprise you. Chickens actually need more food in winter just to stay warm. They burn extra calories maintaining their body temperature, which means they need about 1.5 times their normal feed intake during cold months. For an average laying hen, this means increasing from about 0.25 pounds of feed per day to nearly 0.4 pounds. That's like eating an extra meal every day just to stay warm. Although humans tend to do that in winter anyway, usually involving comfort food and Netflix. The mortality rate of chickens in unheated coops during severe cold snaps can reach alarming levels. In areas where temperatures regularly dip below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, unprotected flocks can see mortality rates as high as 30% during particularly harsh winters. To put that in perspective, in a typical backyard flock of 20 chickens, you could lose 6 birds to the cold alone. Even more concerning is the long-term impact on surviving chickens. Studies show that chickens exposed to prolonged periods of temperatures below 10 degrees Fahrenheit can experience decreased fertility rates in the spring, even after temperatures warm up. This means fewer viable eggs for hatching and a smaller flock renewal rate. Understanding the impact of cold on chickens isn't just about preventing discomfort, it's about ensuring survival and maintaining productivity. When chickens are comfortable, they're not just happier, they're healthier, more productive, and more likely to reward you with a steady supply of eggs all winter long. A well-maintained chicken in proper winter conditions can still produce around 5 to 6 eggs per week, compared to 0 to 2 eggs from a chicken struggling with cold stress. But here's the real question. How do you keep chickens warm without modern heating systems? Well, the Amish have figured out some pretty clever solutions using nothing but rocks and stones. And before you roll your eyes at the thought of heating with rocks, who knew rocks could be the secret to happy chickens? While the rest of us are fiddling with expensive heating systems, the Amish have been quietly using one of Earth's oldest materials to keep their chickens cozy. It's like they discovered the world's first hot water bottle, except it's actually a hot rock bottle. The process is beautifully simple. During the day, carefully selected stones or bricks are placed in sunny spots or near the family's wood stove. These aren't just any old rocks picked up from the backyard. They're specifically chosen for their heat retention properties. Dense stones like granite, basalt, or soapstone work best because they can hold heat for up to 8 hours after being warmed. That's longer than most smartphone batteries last these days. Size matters when it comes to heating rocks. The ideal heating stone should be about the size of a loaf of bread, large enough to store significant heat, but small enough to handle safely. An average-sized stone weighing around 10 pounds can release steady heat for 6 to 8 hours in a well-insulated coop. Multiply that by 4 to 5 strategically placed stones, and you've got yourself a natural heating system that would make any modern engineer jealous. The placement of these heated rocks is crucial. Amish farmers typically wrap them in old burlap sacks, preventing any accidental chicken toe burns, and position them around the coop's perimeter. Some clever farmers even create small stone nests where chickens can huddle close to the warmth without directly touching the hot surfaces. It's like creating tiny chicken spas, minus the cucumber water and fancy robes. Temperature testing is done the old-fashioned way, with hands and common sense. If you can hold your hand against the stone for about 5 seconds before it becomes uncomfortable, it's at the perfect temperature for the coop. Any hotter, and you risk overheating the space. Any cooler, and you're not getting the full benefit. This method has been refined over generations, proving that sometimes the best thermometer is the one attached to your arm. The heat distribution from stones creates what farmers call a heat bank effect. As the stones gradually cool throughout the night, they release their stored warmth into the surrounding air. This creates a gentle, consistent warmth that's far better for chickens than the sudden temperature fluctuations you might get with modern heating systems. Studies have shown that steady temperatures between 40 to 45 degrees Fahrenheit are ideal for chicken health and egg production. But here's where it gets really interesting. The Amish often combine this method with strategic stone placement during construction. By incorporating large thermal mass stones into the coop's foundation or walls, they create a natural temperature regulation system. These permanent stones absorb heat during warm days and release it during cold nights, working in harmony with the portable heated stones. One particularly clever technique involves creating a heat wall using dark-colored stones. These stones are built into the south-facing wall of the coop, where they can absorb maximum sunlight during winter days. A typical heat wall might contain 200 to 300 pounds of stone, providing significant thermal mass for temperature regulation. During winter months, these walls can maintain temperatures 10 to 15 degrees warmer than the outside air, even without additional heated stones. There's also a surprising social aspect to the stone heating routine. In many Amish communities, the daily task of heating and placing stones becomes a shared activity, especially during the coldest months. Children learn the proper techniques from their parents, and neighbors often help each other maintain their heating systems. It's like a prehistoric version of sharing your Netflix password, except it actually brings people together. The economics of this heating method are worth noting too. While modern heating systems can cost hundreds of dollars to install and operate, the stone method requires only an initial investment in selecting and preparing the right stones. A well-maintained set of heating stones can last for decades, with some Amish families using the same stones for multiple generations. Talk about a return on investment. While this method might seem primitive to some, it's remarkably effective. But stones aren't the only natural heating technique that's been perfected over generations of Amish farming. Sometimes the most effective solutions come from working with nature's own processes. And that's where things get really interesting. Sometimes the best solutions are right under our feet. Literally. The deep litter method might sound fancy, but it's really just a smart way of letting chicken poop work for you instead of against you. Yes, you read that right. We're about to talk about how waste becomes warmth and why letting things get a little messy can be a good thing. The deep litter method starts with a solid foundation. About 4 inches of clean, dry bedding material like straw, wood shavings, or dried leaves. This isn't your ordinary spring cleaning approach. Instead of regularly removing all the bedding, you keep adding fresh layers on top as needed, usually about an inch every week. Over time, this creates a rich, layered environment that can reach depths of 8 to 12 inches by winter's peak. Here's where science takes over. As the chicken droppings mix with the bedding material, beneficial bacteria start breaking down the waste. This decomposition process generates heat, around 2 to 4 degrees of warmth above the ambient temperature. In a well-managed deep litter system, temperatures at the floor level can stay 10 degrees warmer than outside temperatures even during the coldest nights, but the benefits don't stop at heat production. A properly maintained deep litter system creates what farmers call a living floor. This environment supports beneficial microorganisms that help control harmful bacteria and reduce disease risks. It's like having millions of tiny janitors working 24/7 to keep your coop healthy. Studies have shown that chickens raised on deep litter systems have stronger immune systems and fewer respiratory problems than those kept on regularly cleaned floors. The key to success lies in moisture management. Too wet, and you'll end up with a smelly mess that generates ammonia instead of healthy decomposition. Too dry, and the beneficial bacteria can't do their job properly. The perfect moisture content should feel like a wrung-out sponge when you squeeze a handful of the litter. Some Amish farmers use a simple test. If you can form a ball with the litter that holds its shape but crumbles easily, you're in the sweet spot. Different bedding materials offer varying benefits for the deep litter method. Pine shavings, the most popular choice, can absorb up to 4 times their weight in moisture and break down relatively slowly. Straw, while less absorbent, provides excellent insulation and creates more air pockets for beneficial bacteria. Some farmers even use a combination of materials, pine shavings on the bottom layer for absorption, topped with straw for extra warmth. Maintaining the right balance requires some attention. Every few days, you'll need to stir or fluff the litter, especially around feeding and drinking areas where moisture tends to accumulate. This mixing helps incorporate fresh droppings with existing bedding and prevents wet spots from forming. A typical 100 square foot coop needs about 15 to 20 minutes of maintenance per week, less time than most people spend scrolling through social media during their morning coffee. The composting action really kicks into high gear during winter months. A well-established deep litter system can generate enough heat to raise the coop's temperature by 4 to 6 degrees Fahrenheit through floor-level warmth alone. In larger coops, this natural heating system can save hundreds of dollars in heating costs over a single winter season. Starting a deep litter system requires proper timing. Most successful Amish farmers begin building their deep litter in late summer or early fall, giving the beneficial bacteria plenty of time to establish themselves before winter hits. This timing also allows the litter to reach its optimal depth of 8 to 12 inches just as the coldest weather arrives. One fascinating aspect of the deep litter method is its self-regulating nature. As temperatures drop, the bacterial activity in the litter actually increases, generating more heat when it's needed most. This natural thermostat effect has been measured to provide up to 8 degrees of additional warmth during the coldest nights of winter. Come spring, you're rewarded with something extra: premium composting material that's perfect for gardens. A winter's worth of deep litter from a modest-sized coop can provide enough rich compost to fertilize a 2,000 square foot garden. The resulting compost is particularly rich in nitrogen and beneficial microorganisms, making it ideal for heavy-feeding plants like tomatoes and squash. Talk about a return on investment. Your chickens essentially create free fertilizer while keeping themselves warm all winter. But warmth from below is only part of the equation. To really keep your chickens cozy during those bitter winter months, you need to think about what's happening above their heads too. From ancient building techniques to modern materials, insulation plays a crucial role in turning your coop into a winter haven. Did you know that most chicken coops lose up to 30% of their heat through poor insulation? That's like trying to heat your house with all the windows cracked open. Not exactly a winning strategy. The Amish have mastered the art of keeping warmth where it belongs, inside the coop, and they do it without a single trip to the hardware store. Natural insulation starts with understanding how heat moves. Warm air naturally rises and tries to escape through any gap it can find, kind of like teenagers sneaking out to a party. The Amish combat this by creating multiple layers of protection, starting with the walls themselves. A traditional Amish chicken coop often features double wall construction with the space between filled with natural insulating materials. Straw holds the crown as the champion of natural insulators. Packed tightly between walls, it creates countless tiny air pockets that trap heat with surprising efficiency. A 6-inch thick straw-insulated wall can provide an insulation value equivalent to modern fiberglass bats. But straw isn't the only player in the natural insulation game. Wool, when available from the farm's sheep, serves as an exceptional insulator. It naturally repels moisture while trapping air, and unlike straw, it maintains its insulating properties even when damp. A lesser-known fact, wool can absorb up to 30% of its weight in moisture without feeling wet or losing its insulating capabilities. In traditional Amish communities where sheep farming is common, wool scraps are often saved specifically for cup insulation. The Amish approach to door insulation deserves special mention. Many coops feature a double door system, an outer door for human access and an inner chicken door sized just right for the birds. This creates an airlock effect, minimizing heat loss during entry and exit. The small chicken door, typically only 8 by 10 inches, reduces heat loss by up to 75% compared to using a single full-sized door. Sealing becomes an art form in Amish construction. Every crack and crevice gets attention, but not with modern caulk or foam. Instead, they use natural materials like clay mixed with straw, a technique called chinking, to fill gaps between logs or boards. This traditional method actually performs better over time than many modern sealants, as it can flex with the building's natural movement without cracking. One particularly effective technique involves creating a natural vapor barrier using layers of overlapping materials. Starting from the outside, they layer wooden siding, tar paper or a natural alternative, straw insulation, and an inner wooden wall. This multi-layer approach not only insulates but also manages moisture effectively, preventing the dampness that can reduce insulation efficiency by up to 40%. The roof deserves special attention in the insulation game. Since warm air rises, an uninsulated roof can waste up to 40% of your heating efforts. Traditional Amish coops often feature a thick layer of loose straw in the rafters, held in place by chicken wire. This creates an insulating layer that's easy to replace or add to as needed. Some clever farmers even design their roof space to allow for adding extra insulation during extreme cold snaps, like putting on an extra blanket when temperatures plummet. Window management plays a crucial role too. Windows are necessary for ventilation and light, but they're notorious heat thieves. The solution? Removable straw panels that can be inserted into window frames at night or during severe weather. These panels, typically 2 to 3 inches thick, can reduce heat loss through windows by up to 60%. During the day, they're easily removed to let in beneficial sunlight. The floor often gets overlooked in insulation planning, but not in Amish coops. A layer of straw bales around the coop's perimeter creates a natural barrier against ground frost, while raised flooring helps prevent cold air from seeping up from below. Some farmers even report temperature differences of up to 15 degrees between insulated and uninsulated floor sections. The most effective floor insulation combines multiple techniques: a raised foundation, perimeter insulation, and a thick bedding layer that works in harmony with the deep litter method discussed earlier. But keeping warmth in is only half the battle. The real secret to a cozy coop lies in how your chickens use the space. When it comes to staying warm, height matters more than you might think. Let's talk about why your chicken's bedroom should be more like a penthouse suite. If chickens had real estate agents, they'd all be asking for the penthouse suite. It turns out our feathered friends are natural high-rise dwellers, and there's solid science behind their preference for the top floor. Welcome to the world of elevated roosting bars, where the simple act of sleeping off the ground can make the difference between shivering and thriving. Chickens instinctively seek higher ground when it's time to rest, a behavior inherited from their wild ancestors who roosted in trees to avoid predators. But this ancient instinct does more than just keep them safe. It's a crucial part of their temperature regulation system. Studies show that chickens roosting just 4 feet off the ground can enjoy temperatures 10 to 15 degrees warmer than floor level, thanks to the natural rise of warm air. The physics of heat rising creates what Amish farmers call a warmth zone in the upper levels of the coop. A well-designed roosting system takes full advantage of this natural phenomenon. The ideal roosting bar height ranges from 2 to 4 feet for standard breeds, with each bar carefully positioned to maximize heat efficiency. Larger breeds might need lower roosts. They're not exactly graceful climbers, while more agile bantams can comfortably manage higher perches. The concept of thermal layering plays a crucial role in roosting bar placement. For every foot of height in the coop, temperature can increase by 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. This means in a typical 6-foot tall coop, the temperature difference between floor and ceiling could be as much as 15 to 18 degrees. Smart farmers use this knowledge to create multiple roosting levels that accommodate different temperature preferences among their flock. Bar spacing is critical too. Chickens huddle together for warmth during cold nights, sharing body heat in a remarkably efficient system. The magic number is about 8 to 10 inches of roosting space per bird. Too much space and they can't share warmth effectively. Too little and they'll squabble like teenagers fighting over the bathroom. A flock of 10 chickens needs roughly 6 to 8 feet of total roosting length, arranged in a way that lets them cozy up without overcrowding. The material and shape of roosting bars matter more than you might think. Traditional Amish coops often use branches or milled lumber with rounded edges ranging from 2 to 4 inches in diameter. This isn't just about comfort, it's about heat conservation. A chicken's feet are designed to wrap around the roost with their feathers covering their toes. The right size roost allows them to completely cover their feet with their body feathers, preventing heat loss through their exposed toes. It's like having a built-in foot warmer. Here's a fascinating fact. Chickens have a unique circulatory system in their legs that helps them stay warm even in freezing temperatures. When they perch, their body weight compresses tendons in their feet, automatically closing their toes around the roost. This triggers a countercurrent blood flow system that minimizes heat loss through their feet. By providing the right roosting height and bar diameter, you're helping them use this natural adaptation to its full potential. The arrangement of multiple roosting bars requires careful planning. Bars should be staggered at different heights, with the highest bars toward the back of the coop. This stadium seating approach serves multiple purposes. It prevents droppings from higher roosting birds from falling on those below. Nobody likes an upper deck surprise. Maintains social order, yes, chicken politics are real, and creates multiple temperature zones within the roosting area. In larger coops, Amish farmers often implement a stepped roosting system, with bars arranged like stairs leading up to the highest roosts. This setup helps less agile birds reach higher spots and creates natural pathways for chickens to move between different height levels. The steps are typically spaced 12 to 18 inches apart horizontally and 12 inches vertically, allowing for easy movement while maintaining the thermal benefits of height. Temperature measurements taken in properly designed roosting systems show remarkable results. At floor level, a coop might register 32 degrees Fahrenheit on a cold winter night, but up at roosting height, those same chickens are enjoying a relatively cozy 50 degrees. This 18-degree difference can mean the difference between stressed birds with reduced egg production and a happy, productive flock. The social dynamics of roosting behavior add another layer of complexity. Chickens establish a pecking order that determines who gets the prime roosting spots. Usually, the highest positions go to the most dominant birds. Smart coop design accounts for this by providing enough elevated space that even the lowest-ranking chickens can find a spot off the ground. After all, everyone deserves a warm night's sleep, even the chicken equivalent of the class nerd. But a cozy bedroom isn't worth much without proper air circulation. Just like humans, chickens need fresh air to thrive. The trick is finding the sweet spot between ventilation and warmth. The smelliest coop is often the warmest coop, said no successful farmer ever. Keeping chickens warm doesn't mean turning their home into a sauna. In fact, proper ventilation might be the most misunderstood aspect of winter chicken keeping. It's all about finding that sweet spot between cozy and stuffy. Kind of like trying to convince your teenager that their bedroom window should occasionally be opened. The science behind chicken coop ventilation is fascinating. A single chicken produces about 0.14 pounds of moisture every day through breathing and droppings. Multiply that by a modest flock of 10 birds, and you're looking at 1.4 pounds of moisture being added to your coop daily. Without proper ventilation, that moisture turns into a cold, damp nightmare faster than you can say frozen chicken. Ventilation isn't just about moisture control, it's about managing a complex balance of gases. Chickens produce a surprising amount of carbon dioxide while they sleep, and their droppings release ammonia. A well-ventilated coop should have a complete air exchange about every 15 minutes during winter nights. This might sound excessive, but the trick lies in how this air movement happens. The Amish have perfected a system called passive ventilation. It works on a simple principle. Warm air naturally rises and escapes through high vents, while fresh air enters through lower openings. The key is sizing and placing these vents correctly. A good rule of thumb is 1 square foot of ventilation space for every 10 square feet of coop floor space, but placement matters more than size alone. High vents should be positioned near the roof peak, ideally on both ends of the coop. These vents do the heavy lifting of removing warm, moisture-laden air. The fascinating part? Studies show that warm air can hold up to 4 times more moisture than cold air. By letting this warm, humid air escape, you're actually helping keep your chickens warmer, counterintuitive as that might seem. Lower vents require more strategic placement. They should be positioned above the height of your roosting bars. Remember those? But below the level of the high vents. This creates what engineers call a stack effect, a natural chimney-like flow that pulls fresh air through the coop without creating drafts. The trick is to place these vents so that incoming air flows above your chickens, not directly on them. Temperature monitoring in properly ventilated coops reveals something surprising. While overall temperature might be slightly lower than in a sealed coop, the effective temperature, how warm it actually feels, is often higher because the air is drier. Chickens can handle cold much better than they can handle damp. It's like the difference between a crisp winter day and a chilly, rainy one. Adjustable vents are worth their weight in gold during winter months. The Amish often create simple sliding panels that can partially cover vents, allowing fine-tuned control over airflow. A properly adjusted vent system should keep the inside of your coop windows frost-free. If you're seeing condensation or frost on the windows, your ventilation needs adjustment. Here's a mind-blowing fact. Chickens produce about 2 BTUs of heat per pound of body weight per hour. A typical 5-pound chicken generates enough heat in 24 hours to warm a gallon of water from freezing to room temperature. With proper ventilation, this heat can be used effectively to keep the coop warm without creating moisture problems. Seasonal adjustments play a crucial role in ventilation management. Winter typically requires about 25% less ventilation space than summer, but completely closing vents is never the answer. Some Amish farmers use natural indicators to fine-tune their ventilation. If cobwebs in the coop move gently, that's perfect air movement. If they're swaying wildly, there's too much draft. If they're perfectly still, more ventilation is needed. But while ventilation is crucial, it's only part of the story. The physical design and location of your coop can make or break your winter warming efforts. In fact, where and how you build your coop might be the most important decision of all. Design and surroundings of the chicken coop location matters in real estate, whether you're a human or a chicken. The Amish have always known that a well-placed coop can cut your winter heating efforts in half. It's not about finding the fanciest spot on the farm. It's about working with nature instead of against it. You could say it's the original solar-powered heating system. The magic starts with sun exposure. A south-facing coop captures up to 6 hours more sunlight during winter days than one facing any other direction. That might not sound like much, but those extra hours of sunlight can raise interior temperatures by 10 to 15 degrees without any additional effort. Free heat is the best kind of heat, especially when your heating system consists mainly of rocks and straw. Speaking of placement, distance from the ground plays a bigger role than most people realize. Cold air sinks, creating what farmers call a frost pocket at ground level. Raising a coop just 12 inches off the ground can make a 5-degree difference in floor temperature. Some Amish farmers get creative with this, building their coops on a slight slope where possible. This allows cold air to naturally drain away from the building, like water down a hill. Natural windbreaks are worth their weight in gold during winter months. A properly placed line of evergreen trees can reduce wind chill by up to 75%. An interesting fact, a single row of mature spruce trees can create a wind shadow extending up to 7 times the height of the trees. That means a 20-foot spruce line could protect your coop for up to 140 feet downwind. No wonder the Amish often plant these living walls years before they build their coops. Windows become silent heroes in winter coop design. Small, strategically placed windows on the south-facing wall can create what engineers call a solar gain trap. During winter, when the sun is lower in the sky, these windows capture more direct sunlight. The trick is in the sizing. Too large, and you'll lose more heat than you gain. The ideal window size is about 1 square foot of glass for every 15 square feet of floor space. Double wall construction might seem like overkill for chickens, but the numbers don't lie. A standard single wall coop loses heat 3 times faster than one with proper double wall construction. The Amish often create this effect by building what they call a wall within a wall, 2 separate wall structures with a 4 to 6 inch gap between them. This gap gets filled with straw or other insulating materials, creating an impressive insulating layer. Snow, believe it or not, can become your ally in winter coop management. When snow drifts build up around your coop, but not blocking ventilation, they create an additional insulation layer. Studies show that a 2-foot snowdrift against a coop wall can provide an insulation value equivalent to adding an extra R10 to that wall. It's nature's own insulation system, free of charge. The roof pitch plays a crucial role too. A steeper roof helps shed snow while creating more interior airspace above the roosting area. This extra airspace acts as an insulation buffer, with temperature measurements showing that each additional foot of airspace above roosting level can provide a 2 to 3 degree warming effect. Building materials make a difference, but not always in obvious ways. While modern builders might reach for plywood, the Amish often use rough-sawn lumber for their coops. The slightly uneven surface of rough-sawn boards creates microscopic air pockets that add to the insulating value. Plus, these boards tend to be thicker than their smooth counterparts, typically a full inch instead of the standard 3/4 inch, providing about 25% more natural insulation. All these design elements work together in harmony, but there's one more factor that can make or break your coop's winter performance. It's not about what you build with or even where you build. It's about who lives inside. The number of chickens in your coop might be the most crucial calculation of all. Did you know that some of the best winter protection for chickens comes from something that looks just like ordinary dust? Farm stores sell it as diatomaceous earth, but most Amish farmers just call it the good dust, and for good reason. This natural powder, made from crushed fossils, works like magic in keeping chicken coops warm and cozy during the cold months. This special dust does 3 important jobs at once. First, it soaks up extra moisture like a super-powered sponge. If you've ever tried to stay warm while wearing damp clothes, you know that dry means warm. The same goes for chickens. They stay much warmer when their home is dry. 1 handful of this dust can soak up as much moisture as a whole cup of water. Second, it keeps away those tiny pests that love to bother chickens during winter. Just like how we don't want uninvited guests crashing our parties, chickens don't want mites and lice trying to share their warm coop. The dust naturally keeps these unwanted visitors away without using any harsh chemicals. It's like having a bouncer at the door of a chicken club. The Amish have turned using this dust into a simple art form. Instead of just throwing it around randomly, they figured out exactly where and when to use it. They focus on the corners of the coop where morning dew tends to collect, around water dishes where spills happen, and in the nesting boxes where hens lay their eggs. It's like knowing exactly where to put welcome mats in your house to catch the most dirt. Timing matters too. Just like how you wouldn't wait until your house is a complete mess to clean it, Amish farmers add small amounts of dust regularly rather than waiting until problems appear. Most scatter some around every couple of weeks during winter, kind of like how we might vacuum our homes on a regular schedule. The dust works differently depending on what's on the coop floor. When mixed with straw, it slowly works its way down to create a dry barrier near the bottom. When used with wood shavings, it spreads out more evenly throughout. Some farmers use both materials, creating layers that work together to keep everything dry and comfortable. Here's something cool. Chickens actually love this stuff. Given the chance, they'll take dust baths in it, which helps keep their feathers clean and healthy during winter months when they can't roll around in dry dirt outside. It's like giving them their own personal spa day. And happy, clean chickens are more likely to keep laying eggs even when it's cold outside. The best part about using this natural dust is how simple it is. You don't need special tools or complicated instructions. Just sprinkle it around like you're seasoning a very large chicken dinner. Though this is definitely not the kind of seasoning you'd want to eat. The chickens do most of the work themselves, spreading it around as they move through their daily routines. Winter egg laying becomes much easier when nesting boxes stay dry and clean. Hens are picky about where they lay their eggs, kind of like how some people can only sleep in their own beds. A dry, clean nesting box means happy hens and more eggs, even during the coldest months of the year. The whole process becomes part of the winter routine on Amish farms. Kids often help with the regular dusting, learning exactly where to sprinkle it and how much to use. It becomes a family activity, just like many other aspects of caring for the chickens. And since the dust is natural, there's no worry about using too much. Any extra just mixes into the bedding. Using this special dust is like giving your chicken coop a warm, dry winter coat. But just like how a coat only works well if it fits right, a coop needs the right number of chickens to stay warm. Too many or too few can throw everything off balance. Speaking of balance, let's talk about why chicken math isn't just about counting eggs. A crowded coop is a warm coop, said every beginner farmer before learning the hard way that chickens need their personal space. Just like teenagers, except chickens are usually better at keeping their room clean. Getting the right number of chickens for your coop size might sound simple, but it's actually a delicate balance between warmth and comfort. Body heat is a surprisingly powerful thing. Each chicken produces about as much heat as a 10-watt light bulb. When you get a group of chickens together, it adds up fast. A successful Amish farm in Pennsylvania houses 40 chickens in 160 square feet of space, and those birds generate the same amount of heat as leaving 4 100-watt bulbs running all night long. This wasn't a random number. They found that 4 square feet per bird created the perfect balance. Many people get it wrong by building their coops too big, thinking they're being kind to their chickens. A family in Ohio learned this lesson when they built a beautiful 300-square-foot coop for just 20 chickens. Come winter, their chickens were shivering despite all the fancy insulation. The space was simply too big for the birds to warm with their body heat. Their neighbors, meanwhile, kept 30 chickens cozy in half that space. The old Amish saying, "A tight coop is a warm coop," isn't just clever wordplay. Finding the sweet spot means giving each chicken enough room to move around while keeping the overall space small enough that their combined body heat can warm it effectively. Chickens naturally huddle closer together when temperatures drop, creating their own heating system. In a properly sized coop, this behavior helps maintain a steady temperature throughout the night. The Amish have noticed that adding more chickens often works better than adding more insulation. One farmer discovered that increasing his flock from 25 to 35 birds in his 140-square-foot coop raised the overnight temperature by 8 degrees, more than he achieved with an extra layer of straw insulation. The chickens generated their own warmth while also producing more eggs to sell. But you can't just keep cramming in more chickens. Each bird needs enough space to move around comfortably, access food and water without fighting, reach their favorite nesting boxes, find a spot on the roosting bars, and stretch their wings without hitting their neighbors. Too little space leads to stressed chickens, and stressed chickens lay fewer eggs. They also start acting like grumpy morning commuters on a packed subway train. Lots of pecking, pushing, and general unpleasantness. The perfect balance comes down to simple math. Each full-size chicken needs about 4 square feet of coop space during winter. Smaller breeds can manage with 3 square feet, while larger breeds might need up to 5. For every 100 square feet of coop space, plan on housing 20 to 25 chickens. This ratio keeps everyone comfortable while generating enough body heat to maintain a cozy environment. Winter brings its own challenges, but chickens are remarkably adaptable creatures. With proper space management, they'll create their own warm microclimate that can sustain them through even the coldest nights. Some Amish farmers have recorded temperature differences of up to 15 degrees between properly sized coops and those that are too large, proving that sometimes less really is more. The art of winter chicken keeping, as practiced by generations of Amish farmers, shows us that working with nature often beats working against it. From proper spacing to natural heating methods, every element we've discussed works together to create a sustainable, comfortable environment for these remarkable birds. When we understand and respect their needs, chickens reward us with fresh eggs, healthy flocks, and the satisfaction of knowing we're carrying forward centuries of farming wisdom. And there you have it, the complete guide to keeping chickens warm the Amish way. No fancy gadgets, no expensive heaters, just simple, time-tested methods that work with nature instead of against it. These techniques have kept chickens comfortable through countless winters, proving that sometimes the old ways really are the best ways.